Friends, we can all see that many white bloggers have millions of followers. Please support me too because my followers are still few. Black bloggers also deserve to be famous. My friends, let's unite and lift each other up. Please press subscribe button and like. In the quiet suburb of Maplewood Heights, Florida, the sun shone brightly on a Saturday morning as Sheridan Cole, a 44-year-old woman, pulled her moving truck into the driveway of her new home. After 2 decades of dedicated service as the county sheriff, she had finally bought the house she had always dreamed of, a cozy 2-story brick home with a manicured lawn and a majestic oak tree. It was a place where she envisioned peace after years of chasing criminals and testifying in court. However, as she stepped out of the truck, she felt the weight of the neighborhood's scrutiny. Blinds twitched, and eyes peered from behind curtains. A man watering his lawn paused, staring longer than was polite, while a woman on the porch next door whispered into her phone, never breaking her gaze from Sheridan. The unwelcome feeling settled in her stomach, but she brushed it off. This was her home now at by noon. The moving truck was empty, and Sheridan took a moment to catch her breath on the tailgate. She noticed that most of her neighbors had retreated indoors, but the blinds still shifted whenever she glanced up. The first to approach her was an older man walking his dog. "You moving in here?" he asked flatly. "Yes, sir. I'm Sheridan Cole. Just got the keys this week," she replied, offering a polite smile. The man nodded curtly and continued on his way, leaving her feeling more isolated than before. Later that afternoon, a white SUV pulled up, and out stepped Clifford Branson, the president of the Homeowners Association, HOA. With his neatly combed silver hair and tightly tucked golf shirt, he approached her with a firm handshake but cold eyes. "Thought I'd stop by to make sure you had everything you needed," he said, scanning her yard with a critical eye. "I appreciate that," Sheridan replied evenly, sensing the underlying warning in his tone. "I'll get settled in soon." Clifford's smile was tight as he patted the hood of her car, as if it were his own, before leaving without another word. Sheridan crossed her arms, feeling the weight of his scrutiny. She had dealt with men like him before, those who wielded rules like weapons. That night, as she unpacked boxes, she couldn't shake the feeling that her neighbors were watching her every move. She wanted to believe that once they realized she was just another homeowner, things would settle down. But deep down, she knew the stares and hushed conversations were more than mere curiosity. The next morning, Sheridan woke early, her years in law enforcement ingrained in her body. As she brewed coffee on her porch, she noticed the same man with the dog crossing the street, deliberately slowing down to glance at her house. A silver sedan rolled past, the driver peering through the passenger window before speeding away. Sheridan raised her coffee cup in a small gesture of acknowledgement, but the driver didn't respond. By 7 a.m., she was in uniform, preparing to head to the sheriff's office. As she stepped outside, she caught 2 women near a mailbox, their hushed tones stopping abruptly when she locked her car. Their eyes followed her until she drove out of sight, and a knot tightened in her stomach. Days passed, and the tension in the neighborhood grew palpable. No one had welcomed her with a pie or a card. Instead, she received side glances and the constant feeling of being monitored. One night, a squad car rolled slowly past her house while she took out the trash. The officer hesitated, waved, and drove off, leaving her frowning. There was no reason for a patrol to circle her cul-de-sac. As the week progressed, Sheridan noticed the whispers turning into complaints. A teenager asked her bluntly if she was renting or buying, and she replied, "Buying." The boy nodded as if he had gathered intel, then jogged off to his friends. The tension was thickening, and she felt the weight of the neighborhood's judgment. Then came the first notice, a violation for leaving her trash bin out too long. Sheridan stared at the paper in disbelief. It had been on the curb for less than an hour after collection. The next notice claimed her car tires had touched the grass edge, another violation. Each notice felt like a personal attack, and she realized they were building a case against her. One evening, as she unloaded groceries, she overheard Patricia Nolan, the HOA treasurer, speaking to another neighbor. "I told Clifford we can't ignore it. She comes and goes at all hours," Patricia said. Sheridan slammed her trunk shut, feeling the anger boil inside her. She wanted to announce herself, to tell them she was Sheriff Sheridan Cole, but she held back. She didn't owe anyone an explanation. The following week, Clifford called the police on her, reporting suspicious activity. When the squad cars arrived, Sheridan stood on her porch, arms crossed, as her deputies recognized her. "Sheriff Cole lives here," one of them said, disbelief in her voice. The embarrassment was palpable, and Sheridan felt a mix of anger and humiliation. That night, she called her friend and deputy, Rafael Ortiz. "They're circling me like I'm some kind of suspect," she vented. Rafael offered to intervene, but she refused. "I just wanted a house, Raf. A place where I could drink coffee without someone clocking what time I walk out the door." The next day, she decided to confront the HOA. She reserved the clubhouse for a community meeting, determined to address the neighborhood on her terms. When the day arrived, the room was packed, and the tension was thick. Sheridan stood at the front, her voice steady as she spoke. "I didn't move here to make enemies. I came here for peace, but instead, I've been met with suspicion and police at my door," she said, letting her words sink in. "You called the police on me without realizing I'm the same person responsible for keeping this county safe." The room fell silent, and she continued, "Safety doesn't come from suspicion, it comes from trust. And right now, this neighborhood doesn't have it." Some neighbors nodded in agreement, while others shifted uncomfortably. Patricia scoffed, "You're making yourself the victim." But Sheridan pressed on, her voice rising. "I've spent 22 years protecting this county, and yet here I am, standing in front of people who called the cops on me because I didn't fit your picture of what belongs." As the meeting continued, the atmosphere shifted. Some neighbors began to murmur in agreement, while others remained defensive. Sheridan could feel the tension in the room, a palpable mix of fear and realization. She knew she had to make her point clear. "Imagine if I weren't the sheriff," she said, her voice steady. "Imagine if I were just a regular person, someone you didn't know. Would you still have called the police? Would you still have treated me like a criminal?" The room was silent, and she could see the wheels turning in their minds. She pressed on, "This isn't just about me. It's about how quickly we jump to conclusions based on appearances. It's about the assumptions we make without knowing the truth." Just as she was about to continue, the door swung open, and in walked Clifford, flanked by a few other board members. The tension in the room thickened as he approached the front, clipboard in hand. "Sheriff Cole," he began, his voice steady but strained, "we need to discuss the complaints that have been filed against you." Sheridan's heart raced. This was the moment she had been preparing for, but she could feel the weight of the room's attention on her. "Let's discuss it," she replied, her voice firm. "But let's do it honestly." Clifford cleared his throat, glancing at the board members before continuing. "We've received multiple reports about your behavior. Neighbors are concerned about your late-night comings and goings, and they feel uncomfortable." Sheridan took a deep breath, feeling the tension in the air. "Uncomfortable? Because I work late? Because I'm dedicated to my job? I've spent my life protecting this community, and now I'm being treated like a criminal in my own home." The murmurs in the room grew louder, and she could see some neighbors shifting uncomfortably in their seats. "This isn't just about rules," she continued, her voice rising. "It's about respect. It's about understanding that I'm not just a badge, I'm a person. I deserve to be treated as such." As she spoke, she could see the realization dawning on some faces. The tension in the room began to shift, and she pressed on, determined to make her point. If we can't trust each other, if we can't see each other as neighbors rather than suspects, then what kind of community are we really building? Just then, a voice from the back called out, "She's right. We've been too quick to judge." The room erupted into a mix of agreement and dissent, and Sheridan felt a surge of hope. Maybe, just maybe, she could turn this around. But before she could continue, Patricia interjected, her voice sharp. "This isn't about personal feelings, Sheriff. It's about maintaining order in our community." Sheridan turned to her, her eyes narrowing. "Order? Or control? Because it seems to me that you're more interested in maintaining a facade than in fostering a real community." The room fell silent again, and she could feel the weight of her words hanging in the air. This was the moment of truth, the turning point in her battle for acceptance. Would they see her as a neighbor, or would they continue to view her as an outsider? As the tension reached its peak, Sheridan took a step forward, her voice steady. "I'm not here to fight you. I'm here to ask for understanding. I want to be part of this community, but I can't do that if I'm constantly under suspicion." The room was still, and she could see the conflict in the faces around her. Some were beginning to nod, while others remained entrenched in their positions. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the chance to bridge the divide. But just as she was about to continue, the door swung open again, and in walked a group of deputies, their presence commanding attention. Sheridan's heart sank as she realized the implications. This was not just a neighborhood meeting anymore, it was a confrontation that could change everything. "Sheriff Cole," one of the deputies called out, "we received a call about a disturbance here. Is everything all right?" Sheridan's mind raced. This was the last thing she needed. She glanced around the room, seeing the mix of fear and curiosity in her neighbor's eyes. This was the moment that could either solidify her place in the community or push her further away. "Everything is fine," she replied, her voice steady. "We're just having a discussion about community and trust." The deputies exchanged glances, and she could see the confusion on their faces. "Are you sure? We can help if there's an issue." "No issue here," she insisted, her gaze locking onto Clifford's. "But perhaps we should all take a moment to reflect on what it means to be part of a community." As the deputies stepped back, the tension in the room shifted again. This was her chance to reclaim the narrative, to show her neighbors that she was not just a sheriff but a member of their community. And just as she was about to continue, the door swung open once more, and in walked a familiar face, Rafael Ortiz, her friend and fellow deputy. He stepped forward, his presence commanding attention. "Sheridan, I think it's time we set the record straight." The room fell silent, and all eyes turned to him. This was the moment that could change everything. Would they finally see her for who she truly was, or would the divide continue to grow? As Rafael began to speak, Sheridan felt a surge of hope. This was the turning point she had been waiting for, the moment when understanding could finally break through the walls of suspicion. But just as the tension reached its peak, the story paused, leaving the outcome hanging in the balance, a cliffhanger that would determine the fate of Sheridan Cole in Maplewood Heights. Do you want to know the fate of the heroes? Please post part 2. Subscribe to the channel and continue watching. Your opinion and support are important to me. Leave it in the comments. Thank you.